Hello, everyone. My name is Mirna, and on behalf of the Mindalia TV team, welcome to Mindalia live streaming, where thousands of people around the world gather daily to see the lectures and interviews organized by Mindalia TV. Today with us, we have Scott Tusa. He is a Buddhist teacher based in New York, ordained by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. He spent 9 years as a Buddhist monk, much of that time in solitary meditation retreat. He has studies in the US, India, and Nepal. He currently teaches meditation and Buddhist psychology international in group or on one-on-one settings. He has basically spent the last 2 decades exploring what it means to awaken the heart through an embodied approach to the spiritual path. And we are super lucky to have him with us today. Before starting with Scott, we want to remind you that Mindalia's mission is to share information that can help raise the level of consciousness around the world. You can help us by subscribing to our channel, leaving us a positive comment down this video, or sharing it with someone that you know that is going to benefit of the content that we're going to be talking here today. We also want you to collaborate with Mindalia with your own valuable content in English through Mindalia TV English, but you can also do it in Portuguese through Mindalia Televisao, and Spanish through Mindalia Televisión. Visit our different channels, our platforms, follow our Facebook pages, Instagram accounts. In that way, you not only keep yourself updated with the information that is being released there on a daily basis, but you also help us reach as much people as possible in the planet so we can accomplish our mission, which is just to share information that can help raise the level of consciousness around the world. We're not going to be delaying this any further. I'm going to welcome now our friend Scott. Scott, welcome once
Thank
again.
you. Thank you. It's nice
How
to
are
be
you?
back. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I was in, like we were talking, I was in Chicago, so just kind of getting back to New York from that.
That's nice. How long were you there for?
Just like 4 days.
Retreat, meditation, classes, a little bit of everything?
I gave some workshops. Yeah.
That's amazing. Scott, I wanted to be with you for another time because last time we were together, we talked about your life, about all the things you do to help people, but we want more. And there are a couple of topics that I wanted to explore with you. I see that you have a podcast, and in what I saw, one of the things that caught my attention was joy as a radical act. And I heard you talking, and I wanted to see if you can share that a little bit with our audience.
Sure.
Why is it that joy is a radical act? What are we missing? Why is that something that should be present in our lives on a daily basis? Why don't we have it? What's the cost of it?
Yeah. So this is a pretty big topic, and I'm currently an article is actually about to come out in Tricycle Buddhist magazine on this, on their online platform. So look out for that. And we'll see how much I can do justice to it now. But I talk about it in a lot of different ways too. But I think essentially it's coming down to reimagining what the word joy means to us, and what, sorry, there's an echo a little bit. I might turn myself down.
Okay.
What joy means to us, and reframing that from a Buddhist perspective. Joy, we can talk about just the joy we have in our relationships, in our way of engaging the world, finding more pro-social ways to engage with each other, ways that are more based on love and compassion. Just as a human being, we all know what joy feels like, but joy is often conditioned. Joy is often based on, what am I getting out of this situation, And then joy for a lot of us is like a high, kind of like an exciting moment that then dissipates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in Buddhism, we talk about more of a quality that I call innate joy, which comes through meditation practice, which comes through kind of reframing our experience into a wider, not just family, but also beyond, into the human community, and starting to engage in a little bit more of an altruistic relationship with people. This is something, excuse me, this is something we grow over time through meditation practice, through understanding our minds, understanding our behaviors, and also, training in empathy, more or less, empathy and compassion. So why I call it a radical act is, I think joy in itself, like just the joy we access that's conditioned, that's not so radical. you know? But joy as a radical act, this innate joy that I'm talking about, it becomes radical because it starts to undermine the systems of what often keep us stuck to dissatisfaction or stuck to sort of seeking out that temporary joy again and again. Like kind of, we say in this sense, we think of drug addiction as something that's so, you know, uh, either we have a family member who struggle with it, or maybe we've struggled with it personally, and we kind of rarefy that into its own category. But actually, we're all on a spectrum of addiction from a Buddhist perspective. Seeking temporary hits in order to
Exactly.
create some kind of temporary satisfaction or happiness. And the Buddha, in the Buddhist teachings, described that as actually a state of dissatisfaction. And so, just to sum up my introduction here, that's why I
Mhm.
consider joy, innate joy, this deeper contentment, as an actual radical act, because it begins to undermine the idea that we always need to seek something outside of ourselves in order to be happy, in order to feel content.
So the idea of joy that you would be bringing is not the high joy, but a stable, sustainable joy.
Yeah, exactly.
How
Yeah.
can we achieve that? If we are taught that certain things are bad, certain things are good, and we actually are we kind of addicted to the what we secrete when we are um in a state of joy, whatever, is it serotonin or
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some people say that. I wouldn't call that the addiction. I mean, that's just a natural part of the body. It's just that we get stuck in patterns of often engaging things that maybe aren't, on one side, aren't helpful. Like they're actually harmful. Like we could put drug and alcohol addiction into that category. But also we have many other addictions. Like I have a addiction to sugar. I know it's not good for me, but I do get slight little body lifts and serotonin and dopamine in my brain. Uh, but here, what we're talking about, I like how you said, sustainable joy. It actually comes from facing our experience more. So it's a long term process. That's why a lot of the work I do with people, I don't have like a quick fix. You know, we live also in a very quick fix culture, at least here in the United States, and so in what I experience, and so often people want like something. Oh, it's either what can I get in order to feel the biggest high or the biggest happiness?
where do I put the layer that is gonna fix all my problems?
Exactly. And it's not like that. I think it's more, in Buddhism, we use the tools of meditative awareness to get to know our minds. And I also teach a lot of these days to get to know the body, because for some people, they don't know their feeling world. They don't have a strong connection to their emotions, to how to work with and cultivate more positive emotions, and how to work with emotions that are painful and destructive. And so a lot of the meditation path, it's like we grow meditation not to become more relaxed. We grow to actually enhance our positive motivations like love, compassion, interdependence, patience, empathy. And we also try to reduce in a helpful way our destructive emotions, anger, aversion, and then try to understand them. So that reduction, I think, doesn't come at the cost of suppressing or not feeling. So I think this is where I teach a lot more embodied awareness practices these days, because a lot of the people I work with have spent a lot of time throughout their life suppressing their emotions, suppressing difficult feelings. And so what happens is the joy, it's like we think we're going to get more joy through suppressing something, be it a trauma or an emotional wound or something that's arising in the body. We're going to get more joy by suppressing and avoiding it, but actually that decreases our joy.
We are kind of taught to avoid feeling emotions, right? We are
Yeah.
taught like if it's anger or if it's too much joy, if it's like too much laughter, what does it take for us to reteach ourselves to accept, tolerate, and permit ourselves to feel all the spectrum of emotions, which I understand we all need, we need all of them, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, this is where it gets into this argument of like, I think some early therapies, it'd be like about letting it out. And some people might think, oh, I'm very connected with my emotion. I just yell every time I feel angry, right? That's not really what I'm talking about. So it's this area of, okay, well, what does it mean to not, throw up our emotions on someone else who doesn't want our anger. They don't want that. They don't need our kind of like,
You think so? They don't want our anger?
I don't think so. What does it mean to not do that, but also not to suppress, our sadness, our anxiety, um, depression, whatever is arising in the body. And so this is where I think in the Buddhist tradition, we use meditative awareness to get to understand what the feelings are that are arising. We can use techniques for simply just allowing things to be. For people with very strong trauma, I wouldn't advise this as the first step. But once we've worked through a little bit and talked out our situation and have formed some resources and platforms of safety, maybe through narrative of understanding our background and our early childhood, then we can start to move into actually being with the sensations and feelings in the body. And so this is a practice my teacher, Sonia Rinpoche, teaches, and then also I teach, as well as kind of, it's a whole set of more embodied awareness practices.
Do you think that it's just something that comes to my mind because we were talking about something similar the other day? Are men, like, do they have a bigger prejudice about feeling? Because I was hearing the other day, like us women, although we are not allowed to express all our emotions, it's okay if we are sad, it's okay if we're scared. But for men, apparently, the way we've been raised is that the only acceptable emotion is anger, for example. Do you see that? And is there are they easier or harder to get rid of or to properly manage, one or the other one, or pretty much the same?
I mean, there's differences, I think, but what I see across the board, I think men have a harder time connecting to their vulnerability, because when a man shows vulnerability, it means he's weak. It depends what culture you're talking about, but I would say I could generalize here a little bit.
Exactly.
For most cultures, the man has to kind of seem like he has it together. So there is definitely that, but I would say overall, we in the modern world, and again, I just know in my areas, I can't speak for every place or culture, right? But the people I meet, it doesn't matter whether they're men or women. A lot of us just don't learn how to relate to our emotions and how to be compassionate with ourselves. So essentially, innate joy is also about self-compassion. I use the kind of two terms a little bit interchangeably. Joy is a little bit like when you put it, people are like, "Oh, I want that." Where self-compassion is not so, doesn't sound so sexy, but they're actually they're the same thing.
Can we be compassionate to others without being compassionate to ourselves?
I don't think so, honestly. I think you can enact compassion for another based off of empathy, but I think the way I put it these days, there's a limit to that until we've learned how to be fully compassionate to our whole experience, including our emotions we don't like, including our sensations and feelings that are blocked and we haven't, gotten to access yet. And so, and this is all, I'm talking about, work for someone over a period of time, because we all have emotional wounds and injuries, from just life. That's what life is. And so it's learning
The
to
wear
work.
and tear.
Yeah, exactly. Learning to work with ourselves in a kinder way. And I think that creates a more sustainable compassion when we're engaging compassion with others. Now, one thing I would like to say too is I think a quality of innate joy, when it's merged with self-compassion or just compassion in general, it gets out of the false dichotomy of compassion for one and or other. It's like we start to see more of an interdependence. That's what we call it in Buddhism, where we start to see less separation between ourselves and others. And so it's not like it's a choice. Oh, should I offer it to myself or another? It just comes for both at the same time.
What do you think about the statement that says that the relationships we have with other people are just the reflection of our inner dialogue?
Yeah,
Is that accurate according to you?
yeah. I mean, in Buddhism, we say more or less the world, our world, what we think our world is a projection of our mind. So then, yeah, our relationships more, I think, are a mirror for pointing back to who we are and how it's appearing to us. I don't think that's saying then we shouldn't hold others accountable when they do something wrong, or there's not communication to be had. But essentially, I do feel we have to take more responsibility for how we're perceiving a situation and how we're interacting with it. and then skillfully communicate with someone. Or if they don't want to communicate, or they're being aggressive or violent, we have to create healthy boundaries and
Remove ourselves from the situation.
or whatever is necessary. Call the police, whatever is happening. Right?
Exactly. And let me ask you something. What's the goal when it comes to joy? What would you say that it's that milestone? Where are we? What are we facing? Where are we going? How do we get there?
The joy that I'm talking about, the innate joy.
Yeah, the sustainable joy, the joy that we are supposed to be pursuing.
That is the innate joy is the path, and the path is also sort of the goal in a way, because it's sort of this innate joy. It doesn't lead to like necessarily from a Buddhist perspective to like a completely pure existence where there's no, like where we never have a problem ever again. It just means we know how to dance with compassion and contentment within whatever we face. So I would say there's more of a platform where we start to live in the world less disconnected from ourselves and others, and we live in a world less sort of compartmentalized, which starts to actually fuse with how things fundamentally are from a Buddhist perspective, which is not necessarily we call this understanding separateness as an illusion, and so that's, I would say, if we put a goal, I would say that's the goal. Though in Buddhism it's tricky because
The goal itself.
that's not actually a point of reference once you get
Okay. I kind of see it like a stream.
Yeah,
Like a
exactly.
current that we navigate. And it's not necessarily the fact that we are going to be eternally smiling, eternally dancing. It's just more harmony.
I think I would say there's more harmony in the sense of like when we know how to flow with life and we know how to understand what's needed in a given situation, and our response is compassion. Not only is that a radical act, but that's a very liberative act. Meaning, often like that sort of thing, the dichotomy now for a lot of us is just highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows, again and again. And then, framing our success in certain highs in certain ways of like in comparison to other people. But what if we get out of that paradigm completely? And it's not, we're in relationship, but we don't have to be in comparison. And so then we seek to get, attached, or what do you call it? Addicted to the highs, and we also know how to work with the lows, because the lows are inevitable, right? Just in a human body, we're going to get sick. We're going to all have to deal with death eventually. And so it's not that then we never feel sad or we never feel a loss or grief. It's that we that makes us more human and more available to others, not less available. I often say this, it's like our choices in life can lead us down the road of either breaking down when something adverse happens, or breaking through, right? So here, I think that stream is like we're learning to break through something rather than have it break us down, which is really needed in the world right now. When we, I don't know if there's more bad news in the world. I just think we're hearing about it more.
That's exactly what I think. Because good news don't sell.
Exactly. So we need a way to stay resilient as we hear more and more bad news. And it's not that then the resilience is, I don't want to hear it, or that's someone else on the other side of the world. No, compassion can be a response that actually uplifts the situation and ourselves, the other person or people or whatever is happening. It doesn't have to break us down. And innate joy is connected into that.
You and I, we are two people. We are in this path. We love the unseen and practicing a healthier mental and spiritual life. And we know that everything happens for a reason, which is pretty much what we've been talking about. But sometimes when it's you, the one that is on the situation that is not the happiest, it's like, I know. But how do you, because you were talking about embodying, how do you actually process that? Or when you are in your practice and this person that has never seen anything that is related to this, and they're going through hardship and struggle, what is your approach? How do you do it?
Yeah, my approach is to, it's a practice that has to develop for someone, and usually I recommend having a teacher to kind of connect on with this. It's not just like an idea I can give and then, oh yeah, I got it, right?
Exactly.
But I will say a little
Because
bit.
you're very successful at what you do, and I'm pretty sure that you have a lot of people that follow you and that seek for your advice and that are knocking at your door, and very frequently. I wonder how, if it's like the the normal movie setting in which the wise man talks, or do you feel resistance? Do you feel people that don't really want to hear? Or how is the process? Tell, if you could share with me an anecdote or a story that has made you
Sure. I mean,
love
definitely.
what you do more.
Yeah, definitely. I think, what I do, first, maybe I'll answer your first question because,
Okay.
and then I'll go to the other one. But, I could connect the two. What I do is essentially, work on myself. This is part of my work. If I'm not working on myself, I have nothing to offer others. I have no way because I don't feel like this dichotomy of like one person has wisdom and one doesn't is false. It's more that one person might have gone into themselves a little bit more, and they can help that other person. They can lift that other person up via that, when the person needs it, right? And so, and it's not me doing the lifting, the person is doing the lifting. But essentially, a lot of this, especially in your last question, is about offering a platform where it's okay to go into our feelings, where it's okay to feel something that maybe isn't pleasant or maybe isn't comfortable, right? And giving ourselves permission and giving tools to do that. So, one way to put this is like we're growing our courage to feel. And it's not just like feel, I don't know how to put this, because when something is really strong and we're going through a really hard time, like you were saying, that's the time when we actually really need to practice more. But often we don't want to feel it because it's uncomfortable. And it's, like when one example is, someone comes to me and they have a broken heart, which is a very visceral experience where it's not so conceptual either, because, it's just clear what happened in this situation. Someone doesn't want to be with the other person, or it didn't work out, or whatever. And then what is the feeling? It's like literally the heart, this space in the heart, can't see me, but this space in the heart feels broken. It feels tense. It feels closed. It feels like someone just took a axe or something. And so we learn through training. I teach other people, and I do myself as well, learning how to feel those areas of the body and to not immediately resist, not immediately try to find something to distract ourselves. I'm not saying you feel it all the time. Like sometimes it's too overwhelming and you need to distract yourself a little bit. But it's learning to have the courage to face things in the body, not just to think about them, not just to reframe them, not just to distract ourselves. And that seems counterintuitive, because when we use the word joy, and then I say, oh, and feel your uncomfort too, some people might think, how is that going to be joyful? But what happens is the constrictions in our body, the elements that are constricted and kind of stuck or a little bit tense or tight, if we never feel them, they just either remain tight or they continue to constrict and tighten. So we need to offer a sense of kind of letting them open, but they open only through our presence, only through kind of coming and feeling them in the body. Sorry, there's someone very aggressive.
You're fine. No worries. You know that it doesn't matter. We are kind of all running away from pain.
Yes.
And I was thinking the other day, like, I fear. I work so much in not being afraid that now I fear. Why are we? Why is it that our culture just doesn't want to deal with that other spectrum of the emotions? You can take it if you want to.
Yeah, it's the delivery people probably. Okay,
Yeah,
hold on.
go ahead. Yes, of course.
Okay.
You got a package? Do you got the Uber Eats meal that I sent you?
Yeah, they just ring until someone answers. They don't care.
That's their job.
Trying to get somebody. Yeah.
That's their job. And I was asking you if we can take it again. Why are we so discouraged towards feeling? Something that once we go through the process, we finally will understand that it was the best, and it feels amazing because you experience you rock bottom, and then you project yourself
Yeah.
upwards. What happens? Because I know you also teach psychology, Buddhist psychology. Why do we fear that so much?
Well, I mean, I think, again, not a simple question to answer, but
None of my
I
questions are simple, Scott.
no, it's good. I like complex questions. I mean, just saying, like, I may not be able to hit all the avenues of the reasons, obviously, but I think fundamentally, some like more traditional Western psychology researchers might say this is just in embedded in our brain and body. It's like our mechanisms of survival is one way to put it. Like when something hurts, the mechanism is to turn away, right?
You're
In
left
order,
behind. The
yeah,
pack leaves you behind.
yeah. So maybe some people might frame it like that. I kind of don't prescribe to that so much, though I think there is biological markers. I would see it more as habituation. So Buddhist psychology just describes our mind and body as what we habituate to, we become used to. So it actually simplifies it a lot in the sense that if we,
Fear
especially,
of the unknown.
yeah, fear of the unknown, or just habituating to a sense of safety. I mean, this is again another way I would say modern psychology would put it, but we might have sought ways early on in our life to find safety in situations that weren't safe, and that kind of served us temporarily in the sense that we were able to protect ourselves for what we thought we were protecting, but it also constricted the body in a certain way. And so this can be anything from like kids making fun of us as a kid to like a parent who was violent or aggressive, to like not getting enough attention from our parents. So a lot of Western psychology will also frame it this way, which I think this has a lot of merit just when we're talking about behavioral kind of psychology and what happens. And so what happens is we literally create an energetic boundary in the body or a protection that then, as we age, if we are not aware of that, that continues to form our habits and our ways of interacting with ourselves and others. And when we don't notice that, that becomes part of our identity. It becomes part of our personality, where then we might have this safety mechanism in place that's just not it's not needed anymore. It's something that we needed as a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, but we never upgraded it. And so it's like we're stuck in that age, when it comes to a certain aspect of relationship or a certain aspect of how we feel.
Carrying the canoe in our shoulders for the next river.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be I like that explanation from a
I like
Western psychology perspective. From a Buddhist psychology perspective, it's just more or less that we habituate again to certain states of mind, and we have either mostly two choices. We are either going to something's going to be pleasurable and we're going to move towards it, what they call craving, or something's unpleasurable and we're going to move away from it, which they call aversion, right? And then these two are based off of a confusion of understanding what is really going to cause us happiness and what isn't. And so sometimes what happens is the hairs get crossed, like the roads get crossed in the craving and aversion. In the craving and aversion. So we may crave something that's actually harmful for us. We may have aversion to something that actually could be helping us. So I think a lot of us build a strong aversion to feeling because the dominant culture, at least in the United States, I can't speak to anywhere else, is a pretty it's not a feeling culture, and it doesn't people who feel more aren't rewarded within the culture, right? And
or
so
mock.
yeah, and then at the same time we're not taught tools on how to work with emotions. So like if I was made fun of as a kid, I wasn't given tools of how to work with the feelings of shame or guilt or self inflicted harm that I felt at that time. So yeah, just
And
a few ideas.
yeah, and I love the explanations. In the suppressing emotions thing, you go through certain experience and you decide, your body, your whole self decides that you don't never want to feel that again, can we suppress one emotion, or by suppressing one emotion everything goes on with it?
I think actually what we're doing is we're suppressing parts of the body. So not physical parts, energetic parts. So these are parts of our body where what we call the subtle body in Buddhism, that's interfacing between the thinking mind, mind as a whole, and physical body like flesh and blood. And so when we suppress a place of the body, for a lot of us, it usually becomes the heart. And so we suppress the heart, and then that starts to close down. That's how it was for me a lot of my life. And then it was harder for me to feel connected to others, or to feel, to love myself, to feel lovable, all of those kinds of common things many of us experience. So I would say due to that, it's like once we suppress a part of the body, it affects a lot of other emotions, right? Getting to kind of what you were alluding to.
And do you see, because we are now talking about the physical body, which experiences the the effects of us holding on emotions, do you see like actual physical restorations or health improvements in the people that work with you?
Definitely, yeah. A lot of times these things are connected to tension in certain places of the body. It can just be like a muscle tension or a way we hold ourselves, like our posture. For some people, it can be a direct illness, and it depends on the spectrum of like traditional medicines. Once an illness reaches a certain level, like let's say we're talking about cancer or something, you can't reverse that through emotional work. It's already become physical. But there's certain things where they're not to that level, and I think we can reverse them, meaning they haven't formed into a physical illness yet, or they're just more related. It's like a complicated relationship where we maybe have shut down a certain area of the body where it tends to numb, or it tends to we don't have a lot of awareness in that area. And then when the emotions and certain aspects of the energy come back online, that physical part of the body can come back online.
That's super interesting. And going back, as we are about to start wrapping up, going back to joy,
Yeah.
how do you transit that path? I know that you're very human, you are very normal, you don't hold yourself to like weird standards. How's your path? How is a day in your life in which you achieve or you accomplish living with joy? Going through that stream of compassion and that emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I think it's more like I was saying, an innate joy is something where it doesn't mean we feel happy all the time. It just means that we feel more and more contentment and compassion within our experience. So for me personally, that means like, you know, it helps me to navigate a bad day better. It doesn't mean I don't feel bad. I go through the range of emotions, and yet it helps me to navigate with more contentment in the situation, to make better decisions with other people relationally when I can. I also make a lot of mistakes, still. But the point is that it's that innate joy where I feel I don't really have to seek out a lot of my happiness via something on the outside. I'm not saying it's not dependent on that, because it is. We're, as human beings, we're dependent also on our intimacy and relationships with others, and we need others. There's just no way of getting around that. Yet at the same time, we can also lighten our impact on the world by having more sustainable innate joy, which is a type of contentment, well-being, and inner compassion. So for me, that's, I'm still working on my path. So that ebbs and flows. But when I'm feeling it, I know what it is now, and it's something familiar. It's like a friend, and so that's why I'm able to talk about it and teach others how to access it. And it's more like a long-term process where it's not just like, oh, I get one thing and then I'm there all the time. It's more like I said, this space where things can flow and be a little bit more what's the word? Yeah, it really helps me from not projecting so much of my unhappiness onto others or onto a situation.
It's
Which
like
is
you have to enroll, study, and graduate on this every day.
Yeah,
on a
exactly.
daily basis.
It's just showing up. But I think where that's one of the really beneficial things we need these days is to understand, like, we need to stop blaming others for our experience. And that's a little controversial to say, because I'm not saying then we shouldn't challenge systems that are destructive or challenge, our political leaders to be better, things like that. It's just we're giving them way too much power than they, what I'm saying? In the sense, like, because we're not realizing how much power we actually have when we find inner contentment.
Yeah,
And
there's no Messiah.
exactly. So yeah, I really feel that's why I teach this kind of thing, because I think it can be really transformative for people to just connect with, even if it's 5 minutes, to connect with a contentment where, hey, I feel happy for no reason. Like, I'm just okay. And that can ebb and flow. But when they connect with that, they see that this very conditioned relationship to well-being and happiness, it's not sustainable, because it's also destroying the world, in a sense. Like, because if we need more and more materially, the world only has a finite, amount of material for 8 billion human beings. So this is
Infinite love.
yeah, and so exactly, love, compassion, innate joy are infinite. And so this is something that can really sustain us.
Do
We're
you
often
believe, do you believe in the like a ripple effect of your kindness and your compassion? Do you see your world changed by the decisions you've been making in the past 20 years?
uh I don't know, like, if I could relate to me so much, but what I can say is an example of, like, when I get on the subway in New York City and I'm in a bad mood, and, like, I do an A/B experiment. One day I'm in a bad mood and I really just notice how I feel, how others feel, what the environment feels like, and then I get on the next day and I'm in a good mood, and I will notice the energy in the place shifts. And I'm not saying it revolves around me. I just think it has to do with our projection, where I start to see
Or
people.
what you're catching, right?
Exactly.
What is it that you're seeing? Maybe they coexist, both. Well,
They
I
do.
think they actually coexist, but what are you tuning to?
Exactly. And I think this is things, more that get put in the more kind of woo-woo category, or kind of new age category. But science will soon find this out. I mean,
Yeah.
mirror neurons, they're now, talking a lot about this, which is just this fact that, when we begin to model something, other people around us pick that up. And it's not just, but what we believe in spiritual traditions is, it's not just like mimicking the smile or facial expressions or body language. We also mimic, like you were saying, we mimic patterns that we're feeling in the body. So we're like sponges, and so we affect the environment affects us, and it's all interdependent. So I see that really clearly on the subway, when I'm in a good or bad mood.
Yeah, see it too. See it in my daily life, and definitely, yeah, I regret the times I've been in a bad mood because consequences are very tangible. Let
Well,
me
it
ask you
happens.
something. What's the next step? What's the next move? What's your next big venture?
Oh, as far as for the work I do.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I continue to work with folks one-to-one, internationally, and then I'm leading a bunch of retreats coming up
tell me about him.
this summer. So I'm going to be in Huaraz, Peru, in April,
Hmm.
and that is end of April, 25th, I think, through 30th, something like that. And that's there's still, I think, one space for that retreat. And then I'm going to be leading with another yoga teacher, Ana Velasco. We're going to be doing yoga and meditation retreat in Tayrona Park in Colombia, near Santa Marta.
That's really nice.
And so, yeah,
When is the retreat in Colombia? Tell me about it, and how can they reach you? Where can they find you?
yeah, thanks. So that retreat is June 6th through 10th.
Okay.
And they can register for it and learn more about it
Your
on my
website?
website. Yeah,
Can you spell your website for us,
sure. It's
please?
it's scotttusa.com. So SCOTTTUSA.com.
Okay, and all the information for the retreats are there, and how to find you, how to arrange one-on-ones or teachings.
Yeah, everything's there. Yeah, and I also lead group classes all over the place these days. Usually,
Do you ever go back to California,
yeah.
your homeland?
I'm going there in a week to teach,
That's
and
really
so I'll be teaching all around the Bay Area and San Francisco Bay Area, and I was in LA earlier in the year. So yeah, I get around.
That's really nice. Hopefully, pretty soon I'll be crashing one of those retreats or meditations or to
Please.
see.
Yeah, we've never
Have-
met in person. It would be nice to meet.
exactly, it will be super cool.
Yeah.
Scott, I want to thank you for sharing with us one more time and your wisdom, all that information in that brilliant head. We truly thank you for giving us
Thanks.
that space, and we're happy that we get to be the channel for, well, one of the many channels that you use to spread the word around. You want to
Thanks
give
so much.
a final piece of advice, something that our audience can value? So you
Yeah.
will.
I think something really simple, because I imagine the audience, there's a pretty big range of maybe people who have meditated and who haven't. Just take, like, I'm not kidding, 2 minutes just to be with yourself each day and do nothing. Sit in a quiet place. You don't even have to meditate or think you know how to meditate. Just sit and be with yourself. Give an opportunity to feel what you're feeling, a chance to kind of not just always be engaging with someone or an activity.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thank you
Marina.
again. And to our beautiful audience, thank you for being with us, for spending time and hearing our message, for helping us share information that can help raise the level of consciousness in the world. Remember that by liking, by subscribing, you help us reach as much people in the planet. We also want your own valuable content, and you can do it by going to our website. On the top, you're going to find a link that says Collaborate with Mindalia. That link takes you to a form that you can fill out for our technical team to be getting in contact with you. You can collaborate with us in English through Mindalia TV English, but you can also do it in Spanish and in Portuguese. Mindalia Televisión and Mindalia Televisao. We share broadcast on a daily basis information as beautiful and as interesting as the one you see in Mindalia TV English. Scott, once again, thank you. Big hug to
Thank you.
you, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.